Hi there, I'm Lorraine. After our family reunion, I got home, opened my banking app, and everything was gone. Not stolen by strangers. My own father took it. When I confronted him, he just shrugged and said, "We needed it." But that wasn't the worst part. Turns out, this wasn't a one-time mistake. It was years of silent manipulation, fake emergencies, loans in my name, even teaching my niece to lie. And for the longest time I stayed quiet, because they were family. But now I wonder, how many times did I mistake love for loyalty? The smell of charcoal and overcooked ribs still clung to my shirt as I stepped out of my parents' house and into the thick Boise heat. It was that kind of family reunion, the kind where everyone hugs too hard, asks too much, and gives too little. My mom had spent the afternoon gliding around with her signature wine glass like it was a trophy, pretending everyone loved each other. My dad, Ricky, mostly sat with the TV on mute, occasionally grunting out his opinion about politics or the price of gas. And Darlene? She was in rare form. "You probably make 6 figures now, right?" she blurted between bites of potato salad. God must be nice. I laughed it off because that's what I always do. That's what keeps the peace. But something about the way she said it, sharp, loud, as if she wanted the whole backyard to hear, stuck in my chest like a splinter. By the time I got to my car, I could feel a headache building right behind my eyes. My father gave me a half-hearted wave and said, "Drive safe, Lorraine. Don't forget you're the lucky one in this family." I didn't respond. I just smiled tight and started the engine. On the drive home, the sky was still glowing from the last stretch of sunset, but the heat hadn't let up. The air conditioning felt like a blessing, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept hearing his voice. "You're the lucky one." As if luck had anything to do with why I was the only one who hadn't borrowed money, tanked their credit, or moved back in with our parents after 40. I got home just after 8:30, kicked off my shoes, tossed my purse on the kitchen counter, and instinctively opened my laptop. Checking my account balance had become second nature, a mix of anxiety and habit after a lifetime of being the responsible one. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The screen loaded. My checking account showed $87.16. I blinked, hit refresh, same number. Yesterday, I had just over $14,000 in there. I had transferred a bonus check from work. I remembered double-checking the deposit. I refreshed the page again. Still $87.16. My hands started to tremble. I opened the transaction history. 3 large transfers had gone through since Friday, each for thousands, and all originating from a familiar IP address. My parents' Wi-Fi, the same one I had connected to during the reunion. A chill ran down my spine. My fingers hovered over the trackpad as if they could reverse it by pausing, as if staring long enough might bring the money back. My breath got shallow. I muttered to myself, "No, no way, he wouldn't, not Dad." But deep down, something cracked, like a curtain finally lifting. The signs had always been there. A week before the reunion, Darlene had called, voice shaking and tearful. "Lori, I hate asking, but the girls need supplies for school. I'm tapped out. Just $300, please?" I wired it to her within 10 minutes. 2 days later, she posted a selfie on Instagram, nails freshly done, holding a mimosa. Self-care Sunday. Another post showed a brunch spread that could have fed a family of 5. The caption said, "Treat yourself." I remembered staring at my phone, a pit forming in my stomach. But I didn't say anything. I told myself maybe someone else paid. Maybe she deserved a break. But now the pieces were rearranging themselves. I sat at my dining table staring at the screen. My apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the fridge and the blood rushing in my ears. I hadn't even taken off my jacket. I scrolled through old mental files, memories I had buried under politeness. The time I covered her rent, just for 1 month. The time Dad's battery died, and I handed over $200 without blinking. The time Mom said, "You've always been good with money. Not everyone's like that." No one asked. They just assumed I'd help, that I should help, that I existed to help. And suddenly, that $87.16 meant something more than missing money. It meant they never saw me. Not really. I whispered aloud, "They didn't even ask." I stared at the balance again. No one had called to warn me. No one had said, "Hey, we're in a bind." No one even pretended this was a shared decision. Just 3 emptying clicks, and the life I'd been quietly building drained out of me. I stood slowly, grabbed my coat again. My body moved before my brain did. I didn't call, I didn't text. I just grabbed my keys and walked out. I was going back. Tonight. The drive back to my parents' house was short, just under 20 minutes. But it felt longer under the weight of everything I couldn't yet explain. Streetlights flickered above me as I turned into their quiet neighborhood. I passed the same white picket fences, the same trimmed hedges, and it hit me how many times I'd made this same drive. Birthdays, holidays, emergencies that weren't mine. This time, it was me who needed answers. The porch light was still on when I pulled into the driveway. Their living room window glowed with a soft bluish hue. Dad probably watching the news with the volume too low to hear anything. I rang the bell once. Pamela opened the door, wine glass still in hand, her eyebrows raised, but her tone light. "Well, that was fast. Did you forget something, sweetheart?" "No," I said, stepping inside. "We need to talk, now." The house smelled like warm leftovers and fabric softener. Familiar, disarming. That was their trick. Make everything look normal on the outside, so you feel crazy for knowing it's not. Ricky barely turned his head from the couch. Darlene was stretched out on the armchair, scrolling on her phone like this was any other Sunday night. I didn't sit down. I stood in the middle of the room and said it. "My bank account is empty. Gone. All of it." Ricky didn't blink. Darlene didn't pause. Pamela frowned, tilted her head. "Oh, Lorraine, don't be so dramatic." I stared at her. "I'm not being dramatic, I'm being robbed." That got Ricky's attention. He took a sip of his beer and finally looked at me. "We needed it." I blinked. Darlene sighed like I had just inconvenienced her. "You're seriously going to throw a fit over money? You don't have a mortgage, no kids, no one depending on you." Pamela chimed in gently. "They were struggling, honey. Sometimes things happen. We didn't want to ask." "You didn't ask," I snapped. "You just took." Ricky shrugged, like that made sense. "You've always helped before. What's different now?" I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. "I helped because I chose to, not because you stole from me." "You're blowing this out of proportion," Darlene said, finally setting her phone down. "It's not like we ran off to Vegas. We paid bills, groceries, rent, survival." Pamela sat on the edge of the recliner and sighed, like I'd accused her of something unthinkable. "It's just money, Lorraine." "No," I said, voice low. "It's trust, and you broke it." The room went quiet for a beat too long. Then Ricky said, "You didn't say we couldn't." I stared at him, blinking hard. "Because I didn't know I had to." Darlene rolled her eyes. "Maybe next time don't leave your login info open on the family computer. I mean, that's kind of on you." There it was, that casual cruelty, that entitlement dressed up like logic. I glanced around the room. No one looked ashamed, no one apologized. They just looked annoyed, like I was making things uncomfortable for daring to care that they emptied my savings. They'd taken the money. Now they wanted to take the narrative, too. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. Instead, I turned, grabbed my purse, and walked to the door. Ricky called after me. "So that's it? You're just leaving?" I didn't even glance back. "This isn't a misunderstanding," I said. "It's theft." And none of them tried to stop me. I stepped into the night air, the silence louder than any argument. As I walked to my car, the question looped in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. How long have they seen me as their backup plan? By the time I got home, the city had already gone quiet. Boise after dark was always oddly still, like it was trying to keep its secrets. I parked in the usual spot, entered the building, and rode the elevator in silence. It was close to 11 p.m. when I walked into my apartment and locked the door behind me. I didn't even turn on the lights. I dropped my purse on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and stood in the middle of my kitchen with a blank stare. I wasn't tired. I wasn't even angry, not yet. I just needed silence, and it gave me too much. After a few minutes, I opened my laptop, not really knowing why. Maybe part instinct, part compulsion. The screen lit up, still open to my bank dashboard from earlier. $87.16. It hadn't changed. Of course it hadn't. I minimized the tab and opened my email. Search, payment confirmation. 100 results flooded the inbox. Rent payments, Zelle transfers, Amazon orders I never made, flights I never took. I began scrolling, and the deeper I went, the more a pattern started to emerge. And then I found it. 2 years ago. A collection notice from a credit card company I didn't recognize. I'd assumed it was junk back then and tossed it. But tonight, I clicked into the details. The card was opened in my name, my address. But the purchases didn't match my life. Luxury candles, streaming services I never used, grocery delivery from a zip code across town, and one of the first charges? A new iPad, shipped to Darlene's apartment. I remembered calling the company trying to dispute the account. The rep asked if I'd authorized the application. No, I said. I never applied for this. The investigation traced the application IP to one address, my parents' house. The same IP that drained my checking account last weekend. I confronted Darlene. She didn't even deny it. It was a temporary thing, she'd said, sipping iced coffee like this was just another Tuesday. You weren't even using your credit. I figured it wouldn't hurt anything. I paid the balance to shut it down. Then I buried it, like always. Back then, I told myself it was a fluke, a bad judgment call. Family does stupid things sometimes. But now I wasn't so sure. I sat down slowly, pulled my hoodie over my knees, and clicked into my photo folder titled Family. Scrolling through birthdays, holidays, blurry selfies from over the years, I remembered the second hit. 6 months ago, a phone call at midnight. Darlene sobbing. Lori, it's Addison. She's really sick. Pneumonia. I don't have enough to cover the urgent care copay. Please. I'd sent $600 that night. No hesitation. 3 days later, Addison posted a TikTok from Lake Tahoe, dancing in a hotel robe, spinning in circles with her cousin by the pool. I called Darlene and asked, Wait, was she even sick? Her answer burned into my brain. Oh my God, you're always so suspicious. We just needed a break. Sorry we didn't clear it with you, Miss IRS. I didn't respond. I didn't demand it back. I just went quiet again. I don't know what was worse, that she lied or that I had believed her so easily. I looked around my apartment. The place felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in with every memory I had tried to forget. I opened a blank spreadsheet. Category, rent paid for others. Amount, $800. Category, Darlene's car battery. Amount, $250. Category, emergency, school supplies. Amount, $300. I kept typing. Cell phone bills, surprise birthday parties, gift cards, vet bills that weren't mine. I stared at the total. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. This had never been about one moment. It had never been about a single betrayal. It was a system. A quiet, manipulative running tab no one thought I'd ever question. I clicked Save As and typed the file name, Family Debt, Do Not Ignore. I sat back, feeling the weight shift inside my chest. This wasn't just money, it was respect, and they'd taken that too. 2 days passed. I didn't hear a word from them. Not a single text, not a voicemail, no apology, no defense. The silence felt tactical, like they were waiting for me to simmer down and pretend it never happened. But I wasn't the same woman they thought they could wear down. It was Thursday when I printed out every piece of evidence. Bank statements, credit alerts, identity reports. I slid the stack into a clean black folder, then set it on my kitchen table beside my keys. I stared at it for a full minute. It felt heavier than it was, like it carried every favor I never agreed to, every dollar I never offered, every time they mistook me for a doormat. By 6:45 that evening, I was parking across the street from my parents' house. I didn't pull into the driveway like usual. I wasn't here for dinner. I wasn't here for smiles. I was here for the truth. I stepped out, folder tucked under my arm. The grass was still damp from afternoon sprinklers. A breeze rattled the wind chimes hanging by their porch. I rang the bell once. Pamela answered, face drawn and unsure. You didn't say you were coming, she murmured. I'm not here to eat. She stepped aside without asking anything more. Ricky sat on the couch, reclined with a soda in hand. ESPN was playing at low volume. Darlene was in the corner chair, legs curled beneath her, scrolling like always. I didn't bother with greetings. I dropped the folder on the coffee table. The slap of it hitting the surface made Ricky flinch. "What's that?" he asked. "Proof," I said. "And the last time I'll explain anything." He chuckled, more annoyance than humor. "You're still on about that account?" "No," I replied calmly. "Now it's about all of them." I opened the folder and pulled the first page free. "Remember this? You co-signed a personal loan 18 months ago using my name. I didn't sign this." Ricky blinked. "You left your social on that tax form. I needed it. Fast. So you committed fraud and used my identity without asking." He didn't respond. Pamela stood in the doorway, arms crossed tightly. Her eyes said it all. She'd known. "We helped you," Ricky said. "We put food on your plate when you were in school. Paid for your books. You think all that came free?" "I've repaid you 10 times over," I snapped. "With silence. With rent when you were short. With gifts you never earned. You used me because I didn't fight back." Darlene finally looked up. "Oh, please. This whole victim act is exhausting. You act like we stole your soul." "No," I said, my voice sharp. "You stole something far more practical. My name, my future, my peace of mind." Ricky waved me off. "Don't act like you're some saint. We all do what we have to for family." I held up another document, co-signature verification. "I'm giving you 48 hours to fix this with the bank. Remove my name. Own it, or I report it." "You wouldn't," Pamela whispered. I met her gaze. "You want to bet on that?" Darlene stood, mouth twisting. "You're being cold, heartless even. What happened to us looking out for each other?" "What happened," I said, stepping toward the door, "is that you thought looking out for each other meant I never got to look out for myself." I grabbed the folder, tucked it under my arm again. Ricky tried one last time. "So what now? You gonna take your own family to court?" "If you ever use my name again," I said flatly, "I'll use yours. In court. On paper. On the record." No one spoke. As I pulled the front door open, I didn't look back. "You think guilt's going to keep me quiet?" I said loud enough to echo down the hallway. "Try me." Then I left, the door slamming shut behind me, not in rage, but in resolve. It had been a quiet week. Too quiet. No emails, no voicemails, no knocks at the door. I thought maybe, just maybe, they were letting it go. But on Saturday night, at exactly 8:03 p.m., a text lit up my phone from Pamela. "Lunch at 1 tomorrow. Just us. Let's talk like family." "Just us" had always been code for, "Let's sweep this under the rug without outsiders watching." I should have ignored it. But part of me needed to hear what their next excuse would be. So I charged my laptop, printed 3 things, and placed them in a manila envelope. Not as evidence. Not anymore. As closure. Sunday was warm, too warm for anything serious to happen, and yet, there I was, walking up the steps of my parents' porch at 12:59 p.m., envelope in hand, notepad of patience completely empty. The front door creaked open before I could knock. Pamela stood there in her apron, her hair curled like it was Easter brunch. "You came," she said, her smile stiff. "I did." The dining table was already set. 4 places. I guess just us meant them plus me again. Ricky looked up from his chair and gave me a small nod, like we were meeting for a board meeting instead of a reckoning. Darlene didn't say anything, just sipped from a glass of sweet tea, tapping her acrylics against the stem. I didn't sit. "We thought this would be a chance to reset," Pamela began, placing a dish of rolls in the center of the table, "to clear the air." "Clear it or twist it?" I asked. Ricky leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Look, none of us handled things perfectly, but dragging this out? It's just hurting everyone, especially you." "Hurting me?" I said. "You emptied my account and used my identity, but I'm the one making it worse?" "We're trying to move on," Pamela added, like this was a family disagreement over a burnt casserole and not financial fraud. Darlene finally spoke. "We don't want to fight, Lorraine. What's done is done. Let's not let money come between us." That was their version of peace. No apology, no ownership, just pressure to pretend. I sat down slowly, placing the envelope on my plate like it was part of the setting. "Funny you say that," I said, "because I ran into Aunt Debbie yesterday at the grocery store. She asked if I was still being as generous as always. Pamela's smile cracked for half a second. She said, I continued, that you told her I offered to cover Darlene's bills, that I was just being my usual big-hearted self. Pamela didn't respond. I pulled out the printout and slid it across the table. A screenshot. A message thread from her phone. One she hadn't deleted from the cloud. Her text to Aunt Debbie, dated 2 days after I confronted them. She's overreacting. She offered to help. It wasn't like we took it without her knowing. Silence dropped like a curtain. I looked at all of them. Let me be clear, I said. I didn't offer anything. You stole from me, and now you're lying to other people about it, to protect your image. Darlene scoffed. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I turned to her. No, you just got too comfortable thinking I'd never say anything. I stood. This is your last chance. After today, I go public. I go legal. I go wherever I need to so this doesn't happen again, to me or anyone else. I pulled a sealed envelope from my purse and set it on the table. The name of my attorney printed neatly in the return address corner. A cease and desist, I said, effective immediately. Pamela's hand hovered above it, but she didn't touch it. Ricky leaned forward like he might speak, then didn't. I stepped back from the table. No more backdoor conversations, no more stories to family, no more guilt trips. No one stopped me. I left the roast untouched, the tea full, the table full of people who had run out of lies they could hide behind. I didn't even turn around when the door shut behind me. I just kept walking down the front steps, onto the driveway, and back into my car. I sat there for a while, staring out the windshield, my hands motionless on the steering wheel. Not because I was unsure of what I'd done, because I wasn't, but because the silence afterward hurt more than I'd expected. The engine clicked softly as it cooled, a mocking quiet. They didn't chase me. They didn't yell. They didn't apologize. Just sat there, stunned, like I'd done something cruel. I drove home, showered, and let the rest of the evening pass without turning on the TV or checking my phone. The roast smell still clung to my clothes, like fake comfort. I tossed everything into the laundry basket, locked the apartment door behind me, and for once, I didn't dream at all. The next morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. Nothing from them. No missed calls. Just a lingering bitter taste in my mouth and the sound of my email refreshing. I tried to move on with my day. I really did. I cleaned my desk, organized files, even watered the succulents I usually forgot about. But the stillness was loud and heavy. By late afternoon, I agreed to watch Addison, Darlene's daughter, for a couple hours while she met with someone from her new job agency. Addison was dropped off with her usual hug and tablet in hand. She's all yours, Darlene chirped from the hallway. Thanks, sis. Sis. The word landed differently now. While Addison colored quietly at my kitchen table, I sat beside her to check the weather on her tablet. Just for a moment. The screen was already unlocked. A messenger window blinked in the background. Notifications piled in the corner. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The group chat name was Carver Core. It had every name you'd expect: Darlene, Pamela, Ricky, even a cousin or two. At first it was family jokes, memes, baby photos. Then a thread caught my eye. Darlene. She's seriously lost it, like paranoid level nuts. Pamela. She was always sensitive. This is just her being dramatic again. Ricky. Girl gets a good job and thinks she's Queen of Idaho. We should have never let her go to college. And then, laughing emojis. From all of them. I sat frozen, scrolling. The messages dated back weeks. Weeks of mockery, while I was breaking inside trying to understand what I'd done wrong. Screenshots. I took them all, quietly, deliberately. My fingers didn't even shake. I locked the tablet and handed it back to Addison, who smiled like nothing in the world was wrong. They're not who you think they are, I whispered to myself. That evening, I made an appointment. The next morning, I sat across from my lawyer in his downtown office. His glasses rested on the edge of his nose as he read through the documents I handed him. The unauthorized loan, the group chat screenshots, the fake gifts they told people I'd offered. He looked up, brows raised. You're ready to move forward? I nodded. No more warnings. Draft everything. And the scope? He asked. All of them. Ricky, Pamela, Darlene. I want every single name tied to this mess addressed. Fraud, identity misuse, Emotional coercion, financial abuse. He closed the folder, leaned back in his chair, and said the first calm thing I'd heard in weeks. You have a case, and it's airtight. As I stepped out of the building, the early afternoon sun hit me hard. It was too bright for the mood I was in. I stood there for a moment, letting the warmth sting. My phone buzzed. One new text, from Darlene. Did you seriously just subpoena Mom? I stared at the screen for a moment, then turned the phone off without replying. I walked down the street and didn't look back. It was 3 days after I walked out of my lawyer's office when the knock came. I wasn't expecting company. I wasn't expecting her. Addison stood at my door, backpack slung over one shoulder, her curls pulled into a messy ponytail, one shoelace dragging behind her. Hi, Aunt Lorraine, she chirped. Mom said I'm sleeping over tonight. I blinked. Darlene hadn't texted, hadn't called, just dropped her off. Again. Did she say when she'd be back? Nope, Addison said brightly. She said I could stay as long as you want me. It wasn't the first time Darlene treated me like unpaid childcare, but this time felt different. Strategic. Like she knew I'd be less likely to take legal steps while babysitting her daughter. I let Addison in. We baked cookies, watched reruns of the Great British Bake Off. She giggled every time a contestant dropped something. For a moment, it almost felt normal, until it didn't. She held up her tablet while licking a spoon and said casually, Mom said not to tell you about the iPad. My hand paused over the cookie tray. What do you mean? She said Grandma bought it, but really, Mom got it with the card she keeps hidden, the one she said came from you. My heart stopped. She also said not to talk about my new phone, Addison added, licking frosting from her finger. Mom said it's better if you think it's a gift. I stared at her, at that sweet, honest face, and felt my stomach twist. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about shaping a child into a mirror of her mother's lies. That night, when Addison fell asleep on my couch with crumbs on her shirt and Frozen still playing softly in the background, I stood in the kitchen staring at the ceiling. Darlene wasn't just reckless. She was rewriting her daughter's sense of right and wrong. The next morning, I drove straight to my mother's house. Pamela answered the door, surprised to see me. Before she could speak, I said, Is Darlene here? She hesitated. She's in the kitchen. I walked in without waiting for permission. Darlene sat at the counter, sipping coffee like nothing was wrong. I know what you told Addison. She didn't flinch. What are you talking about? About the iPad, the phone, the credit card. You made her lie to me. Her eyes narrowed. She doesn't know how to keep her mouth shut, does she? I stepped closer. She's 10, Darlene. She's not your shield. She's not your cover story. You're teaching her that lying is how you survive. You're poisoning her. Don't bring my kid into this, she snapped, voice sharp and low. You brought her in the moment you dragged her into your web of lies. Pamela stepped between us, hands raised. Girls, this isn't helping anything. I turned to her. It should help, but you're still pretending this isn't serious. Ricky emerged from the hallway, already defensive. This is all going too far. You're breaking this family over some cash and bad choices. You don't get to use the word family, I said, shaking. Not after what you did with my name. Not after you laughed at me behind my back. Not after Darlene weaponized her own daughter. Pamela's voice cracked. Lorraine, this is family. No, I said, stepping back, voice cold and steady. This is abuse, and I'm done pretending it's not. I handed Pamela a document, another notice. Final. Legal. Binding. This was filed 2 days ago. All 3 of you are named. What happens next is no longer my decision. It's in the court's hands. Darlene's face paled for the first time. I swear you're acting like we killed someone, she whispered. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. As I turned to leave, I looked back at her one last time. If they won't stop you, I said, the court will. She didn't move. Neither did Pamela. Ricky folded his arms, but for once said nothing. And as I stepped out into the cold morning air, I realized something powerful. They weren't scared of losing me. Until now. The quiet didn't arrive with fireworks or fanfare. It didn't come in the form of an apology, a confrontation, or even a last-ditch effort to guilt me back into place. It just happened. like a light slowly dimming in a room I no longer wanted to be in. It had been 2 weeks since I walked out of my mother's house for what I told myself, what I knew, was the last time. I hadn't packed much, just a duffel bag, my documents, and my dignity, which, up until that moment, had been chipped away piece by piece for years. I didn't slam the door, I didn't look back, I didn't give them the satisfaction of a final argument. I simply left. And then came the silence, not peaceful, not relieving, not at first. It was the kind of silence that presses against your chest in the middle of the night and asks, "What now?" No missed calls. No voicemails laced with that performative hurt my mother was so good at faking. No vague texts from my father pretending like he didn't know why I was upset. Just absence. Like they had collectively decided I no longer existed. I thought I was prepared for backlash, a barrage of accusations, maybe even a visit at work or a letter in the mail accusing me of tearing the family apart. I braced myself for emotional blackmail, for teary, "How could you do this?" messages from my sisters. But the silence? That was something else entirely. It wasn't just quiet. It was calculated. It took me a few days to understand it for what it was, punishment. This was their way of showing me what life without them looked like, their way of reminding me who had the power. But what they didn't realize was that this silence, this vast, echoing emptiness, wasn't hurting me the way they thought it would. If anything, it was clarifying. Every evening I came home from work, kicked off my heels by the door, and slipped into something soft and loose. I'd light a candle, brew tea, open my laptop and check the latest updates from my lawyer. I was neck deep in the legal mess left behind, untangling the web of lies they'd spun with my name on credit applications, my signature forged on loan agreements, my financial reputation used and discarded like an old receipt. It was exhausting. But it was mine. My fight. My choice. Then one afternoon, as I was clearing out my spam folder, half focused, half bored, I saw it. Subject: "For what it's worth from Marcy, my cousin, the quiet one, the one who always kept her eyes low during family dinners, who never raised her voice, never rocked the boat." I clicked before I could overthink it. "Lorraine, I don't expect a reply, but I want you to know, you did the right thing. I've watched this family chew you up for years. They never saw you as a person, just a provider. Watching you finally stand up wasn't just brave. It gave me permission to rethink my silence too. Whatever they say about you now, I know the truth." I read it once, then again, then a third time, and I broke. Not out of rage, not from pain, but from the relief of being seen, of someone finally naming the thing I'd carried for so long. I cried like I hadn't in years. Not the hot, panicked sobbing of someone in crisis. It was quieter than that, like a letting go, like exhaling after holding your breath too long. A few days later, I got a letter from the bank. My name had been officially removed from the fraudulent loan my father opened. Another letter arrived the next morning. An internal investigation had been launched into Darlene's, my sister's, accounts. Suspicious transfers. Duplicate beneficiaries. My mother's name appeared in the case file notes. Willful omission, they called it. She knew. Of course she knew. And still, not a word, not a call, not even an attempt to justify it. I thought that would be the most painful part. The betrayal, the exposure, the way the truth unraveled in front of strangers in suits with clipboards. But no, the hardest part was their complete lack of remorse. They didn't deny it. They just dismissed me. Like I was the one who'd done something unforgivable. One night I found myself sitting cross-legged on the floor of my apartment, a half-empty glass of wine beside me, sorting through old photo albums I'd brought with me but never opened. Snapshots of what used to be, birthdays, Christmas mornings. My niece in a pumpkin costume, her gummy grin making me laugh despite myself. I didn't throw them out. I wasn't angry like that anymore, but I didn't need them close either, so I slid them gently into a box, taped it shut, and placed it in the back of my closet. I wasn't erasing the past. I just wasn't going to carry it with me anymore. That Sunday, I woke early. The kind of early where the sky is still gray, and the world hasn't decided what kind of day it's going to be yet. I brewed coffee, pulled a blanket around my shoulders, and stepped out onto my small porch. The breeze was cool. The trees swayed lazily. A few birds chirped like they didn't have a care in the world. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of anyone else's expectations. No demands, no guilt, no tightrope to walk, just me. I took a deep breath, let it fill my lungs, and whispered into the quiet, "You can't miss what was never real." Behind me from the kitchen, my phone buzzed. A single new voicemail, from Pamela. I didn't rush to play it, let it wait. For once, I wasn't the one chasing closure. 3 months later, I was somewhere new. Not just geographically, though technically I'd crossed state lines, but emotionally, mentally, entirely. Eugene, Oregon wasn't all that different from Boise on paper. Similar weather, similar landscape. The same kind of trees, the same overcast skies that hinted at rain without ever quite delivering. But the air felt different here. Not just cleaner, but quieter. Like it had decided not to carry other people's expectations anymore. The street I lived on was unremarkable in the best way. Rows of small houses, neighbors who waved but didn't pry, and trees lining the sidewalks that had just begun to shed their golden leaves. I watched them fall from my second-story apartment window most mornings, slow and steady, like the world itself was learning how to let go, and maybe in some way it was. I worked out of a small co-working space just 2 blocks away. Nothing fancy. White walls, too many plants, and a playlist that alternated between lo-fi beats and soft acoustic covers of songs no one wanted to admit they still liked. There was a coffee shop across the street, and within 2 weeks, the baristas already knew my name and my order. Oat milk latte, no syrup. Life had become simple in a way I never thought was allowed. My mornings were no longer filled with passive-aggressive text messages or frantic phone calls. No last-minute errands for someone else's mess. No drama dressed up as obligation. Instead, I woke up to sunlight crawling through my curtains. I stretched. I breathed. I made breakfast slowly. I worked without dread. I ended my days without needing to brace for an emotional ambush. But not every day was light. Some mornings still came with a strange, hollow ache. Not panic. Those days were over. And not fear, exactly. It was softer than that, like a healed wound remembering the shape of the knife. That morning, the air was cold enough to make me reach for a sweatshirt. I poured a second cup of coffee, then stood still for a moment. The world was quiet. But inside, something stirred. And that's when I remembered it. The voicemail. The one I never played. I hadn't deleted it. I hadn't forgotten it, not really. I just postponed it. Buried it in a drawer with old receipts and half-used notebooks. But now, for some reason, I needed to hear it. Not for closure, just to stop wondering. I sat on the edge of the bed, the ceramic mug warming my fingers, and unlocked my phone. There it was, buried under newer messages from utilities and newsletters I never read. I pressed play. Pamela's voice came through, quiet, hesitant, like she didn't trust herself to say what she needed to. "Lorraine, I didn't know it would go this far. We never meant to hurt you, we always assumed you'd be there. You always were." A pause. Not long. Just enough space for me to realize she wasn't calling to apologize. "Your sister's not doing well. This has all been hard. Can't we just stop this?" There it was. Not remorse. Not even recognition. Just a gentle nudge back toward silence. Toward pretending. I didn't hesitate. I hit delete. The sound it made, a single clean click, was more satisfying than I expected. Like shutting a door. Like locking it. Like finally choosing not to let someone back in. Later that week, a plain white envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. The handwriting on the front was tidy, careful, not familiar. Inside, a check for $1,200 and a small folded note. "I know we've never spoken much, but I saw what happened. You stood up when the rest of us shut up. Years ago, you paid for things my brother should have handled. I never said thank you, so here's a piece of it. Late. You were brave. Kelly, Darlene's ex-husband's sister." I held the check between my fingers, stunned. Not by the money, though it was generous, but by the word, brave. No one in my family had ever used that word about me, I was always responsible, reliable, selfish when I stopped being those things. But brave? That felt like the truth finally finding its voice. I didn't deposit the check right away. I left it on the windowsill above my kitchen sink, where the sun could fade the ink a little more each day. It wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that someone had seen the price I'd paid and acknowledged it. That night, I sat at my desk with a blank sheet of paper. Not typing, not texting, just a pen and the page. I didn't address it to anyone. Not my mother. Not Pamela. Not even Kelly. I wrote it for myself. You don't owe silence to anyone who harms you, not even if they share your last name, not even if they once tucked you in at night. You have every right to leave. You are not a villain for protecting your peace. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer of my nightstand, not as a keepsake, as a reminder. Later, I stepped out onto my small balcony with a mug of tea. The sky was turning that deep lavender shade right before it gives in to night, the kind of dusk that makes everything feel possible. I stood there, wrapped in a sweater, the steam rising in lazy spirals from my cup. No noise, no tension, no need to explain myself, just stillness. I sipped slowly, letting the warmth settle into my chest. No regrets, no revenge, just release. And then, as the rooftops blurred into silhouette and the last light sank below the trees, I whispered something I hadn't dared to say out loud. Not until now. I didn't lose a family. I lost a cage. And as I watched the breeze move through the trees like a quiet tide, I let the final thread of guilt unravel and disappear into the wind. Some people think family means forever. I used to believe that too, but here's what I've learned. Being related doesn't give someone the right to harm you. Love without respect is just control wrapped in guilt, and silence, no matter how noble it feels at first, only teaches others how far they can push you. I didn't walk away because I stopped loving them. I walked away because I started loving myself more. To anyone watching who's ever felt like a doormat for family, or been told to just let it go, you're not wrong for drawing a line. Boundaries are not betrayal, they're survival. And if this story hit something in you, maybe a memory, maybe a wound, I want you to know this. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose yourself. Even if it means walking alone for a while, it's better than walking wounded forever. Now, let me ask you something real. Have you ever had to choose peace over family? Do you believe loyalty has limits? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And if this story touched you even just a little, hit that 1 in the comments so I know you felt it too. And hey, if you want more stories like this, more moments that make you think, feel, and maybe even heal a little, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one.
My spouse leads a prestigious department. You barely have a middle school education, therefore you're nothing like him. Lily, a classmate and friend from my childhood, teased me with a sly smile. Then I guess he's fired. The things I had just uttered had even shocked my old classmates. My name is Mason. This year, I turned 30. I've been wed to Sarah for the past 3 years. Sarah is soft and compassionate, and we enjoy a great marriage and a calm home life together. I once came into a beautiful envelope when I was at home checking the mail. I recognized the sender as Lily, a friend from middle school who I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. An invitation to our middle school reunion was inside in the envelope. Why now, after all this time? I was perplexed, but I also decided to go since I wanted to see everyone again. The reunion day finally arrived. After Sarah assisted me in choosing a suit, I went to the location. It was a standing buffet-style party, and people were mixing freely when I got there. I was enjoying the food and greeting a few folks when Lily, the reunion's organizer, came over to me. She scornfully said, "Oh, look at this dull group," with obvious mockery. Just a bunch of poor people. In class, I was never the kind to stick out. Mason, a long time has passed. Lily addressed me in a sarcastic and contemptuous manner. I was concerned, wondering what you were doing and where you were, Lily said. We used to live close by and be buddies in our early years. I'm getting married soon, so I gathered everyone here today to share the news. Well, congrats, I replied. My spouse leads a prestigious department. You barely have a middle school education, therefore you're nothing like him. Lily scoffed once more. Her remarks were astounding, yet I genuinely applauded her without wanting to start a commotion. Those in our immediate vicinity also congratulated us. Satisfied, Lily carried on speaking. I sincerely hope that everyone will be there for my wedding. There will be a lot of visitors on my husband's side because he is expected to take over his family's business following the wedding. I want all of my middle school classmates to come as his guests because of this. As she talked, she distributed wedding invites. Despite everyone's clear desire for her to flaunt herself, nobody spoke up or accepted the invites. Lily purposefully underlined the word childhood friends, saying, "You're coming, of course, after all, we were." My mother and Lily's mother were reportedly close friends in school. But when I was in the 3rd grade, my mother passed away, and my father, who made machine parts in a factory, raised me. At that point, everything altered. My life altered drastically after my mother passed away, and my father attempted to use drink and gambling to hide his loneliness. We had no choice but to sell our home and relocate into a dilapidated flat. I had to settle with hand-me-downs from relatives because I couldn't afford a new uniform, even when I started middle school. There was not a single school function that my father went to, such as graduation ceremonies or open houses. My students began insulting me harshly and calling me dirty and impoverished as a result. When Lily realized this, she started to turn away from me, and by middle school, she was spearheading my bullying. When I gently broached the subject of high school with my dad during our 3rd year of middle school, he became enraged. "What topic are you discussing? I will never send you to high school." I was shocked and couldn't think of anything to say. I made a valiant effort to persuade my father that I wanted to finish my education, but he adamantly refused to listen. The fact that I will start working immediately after middle school was soon brought up in class. Lily, the life of the party in our class, was one of the people making fun of me. "After middle school, you're going to work. What? Well, I suppose you can't afford high school if you just have one parent. How sorry for one so impoverished as you." The other students laughed when Lily said this. I was so desperate to get my circumstances changed. I sneaked out of my house that day of my middle school graduation and boarded the train into the city by myself. I was terrified and anxious since I had no one to turn to. I've seldom ever gone back to my hometown or even my house since that day. I maintained occasional contact with a small group of close pals, but that was all. I later looked for a job in the city, but very few places would hire someone with only a middle school diploma. The cleaning company where I work now was the only job I could locate. I've always been a little bit of a neat freak, so this job seemed like a good fit. I put in a lot of work, and a few years later, at the age of 22, I ran into Sarah at work. Her lovely smile and her courteous demeanor toward everyone drew me in. Then she asked me out to supper, which astonished me. We kept dating and eventually tied the knot. I called my father as soon as I made the decision to marry Sarah, because I felt that I should at least let him know. However, he sounded completely indifferent. "Whoa, you're getting married to someone? She must be somewhat eccentric." "Dad, that's not a very nice thing to say." "Well, as long as you don't involve me, do whatever you want." I was pretty sad since I had secretly hoped he might be slightly pleased that his only son was getting married. However, Sarah reassured me softly. "I'm now your family, Mason. Let's concentrate on enhancing our enjoyment together going forward." I recall giving her a hug and crying a little when she said something that really affected me. Ever since, I've made an effort to put my family and peers behind me and concentrate on the life I've created. However, upon unexpectedly receiving an invitation to Lily's wedding, I made the decision to discuss it with Sarah upon returning home. Perhaps this is their attempt at making amends with you, Mason. Perhaps they've matured and are reconsidering. I said, "You think so?" Sarah said, "I think you should go. Of course, I'll be there with you." "Okay, I'll be there then. Regards, Sarah." I replied back the invitation with the notation attending the next day. I put on my suit the day of Lily's wedding, 3 months later. Sarah had her hair done in a lovely manner and had been dressed in a dress since the morning. I couldn't help but find her captivating. We went to the location together. One of the biggest and most well-known locations in the neighborhood served as the wedding site. Well, considering she's marrying the president of Harris Industries, it's no surprise the wedding is this grand. Sarah answered, "Yeah, I bet there are over 300 guests here." As we waited for the bride and groom to arrive inside the chapel, we engaged in conversation. Lily appeared very joyful as she strolled down the aisle alongside her father. Her father's expression was equally proud. I applauded like everyone else, but I was also a little jealous and nervous when I watched this moment. Seeing how I felt about my father's absence from my wedding, Sarah had thoughtfully proposed that we hold a short ceremony with just the two of us. We went to the friends' table, where my former classmates were sitting, after entering the reception hall. Sarah seemed to pique everyone's interest, and some even inquired about her educational background. Sarah, who found the scenario amusing, simply laughed it off. We looked at each other, and I sat down. After that, the reception started. Lily, who was wearing a traditional attire at the time, grinned radiantly. Eric the groom looked like a crisp, contemporary CEO standing next to her. The pair was praised by all, who were happy for their union. Many of the attendees appeared to be Harrison Industries executives and staff members who had come to celebrate the couple's fresh start. Given that Harrison Industries is a mid-sized machine design company, the lavish nature of its president's wedding was not unexpected. Halfway through the reception, the bride and groom left for a quick change of clothes. I took this as an opportunity to get up, tell Sarah I was going to the bathroom, and walk outdoors. I was surprised to see Lily and Eric, who had just left. They were snapping pictures to remember. I never would have imagined running into them after they left. A little taken aback, I made sure to extend my sincere congrats right away. "I appreciate you having me here today, Lily. Many congratulations on your union." Lily spoke in a tone that belied her seriousness, and her expression soured. "Oh, you showed up at all? Have you been able to put together a suitable gift? At least it appears that you are dressed nicely in a suit. Is this man one of your peers?" Eric stood next to Lily and gave me a perfunctory, in-depth look. "He is, indeed," Lily remarked. "He insisted on coming even though I really didn't want to invite him because I was embarrassed." "Sorry? Why not?" Eric looked to Lily and inquired. "I never made a point of going. All of my classmates present today, I'm sure, felt exactly the same way. Lily was the one who persuaded us to come. Though I wanted to say what was on my mind to ruin their special day, I refrained. But Lily and Eric never stopped making fun of me with no consideration for how I felt. As Lily said, "Because he's only got a middle school education," she gestured to me. Eric said, "Who?" in a playful tone. When he looked at me, there was obvious disdain in his eyes. "However, he's wed. In any case, what does your wife do?" asking Lily. I therefore gave a truthful response. "She is employed as a cleaner. We work for the same company together." Lily and Eric exchanged a look at this, then their faces turned into twisted sneers. "Well, that's a nasty, dirty job. For someone like you who only completed middle school, it's ideal. However, I wouldn't be able to admit it if I worked for a cleaning firm. Yes, I can't even begin to imagine that as a CEO. As low as it gets is that." I snapped, "Hey, don't talk like that." However, Lily dismissive waved her hand as though brushing off a nitpicky. "Please just head home. It is awkward for you to be here. Poverty may spread among people. What was the point of both of you coming? Also deserving of humiliation is your spouse. How could she not feel self-conscious about walking next to someone like you? After saying that, Lily and Eric turned away from me. I trembled with wrath, clenching my hands. I came here hoping to really congratulate them despite everything that had happened to me in middle school. And this is how I'm treated. They not only made fun of Sarah and our work, but they also insulted me. This was not excused. A soft hand landed on my shoulder as I stood motionless in the wedding venue's entryway. Sarah, I heard everything. Mason, I have an idea though, Sarah replied, smiling calmly, but with a distinct hint of rage in her voice. Then Sarah and I went back to the reception hall. After changing into new clothes, Lily and Eric left the room for a time. But their faces twisted in disgust as they realized I was still there. I tried not to let it disturb me and did my best not to glance at Lily. A presenter took up the microphone and started pacing the room as the event was about to end. It seems that the MC was asking people to congratulate the pair as she went around the room. Harrison Industries staff members complimented Eric, and a woman who appeared to be one of Lily's acquaintances started crying and stated, "I hope you have the happiest possible life." This produced a sentimental and cozy mood. After a while, the host moved to the table where Lily's classmates from middle school were seated. The bride's middle school classmates are pictured here. We would be delighted to hear your congratulations, Lily. I was given the microphone after saying that. I looked at Lily, who had a look on her face that stated, quite clearly, "Don't you dare say anything unnecessary." Instinctively, I turned to face Sarah, who nodded silently to me. I returned the nod and started talking. I attend the same university as the bride. I only want to make one statement. All contracts between Eric's company, Harrison Industries, and my company, Anderson Cleaning Services, will be terminated going forward. Suddenly, the room was silent. Grinning, I returned the microphone to the presenter. Well, just what does that mean exactly? The host stumbled and began to perspire. From the head table, Lily spoke up out of the blue. To everyone, I apologize. This individual is prone to lying and has unstable emotions. It's really awkward. Here he is, talking like a silly little janitor. Eric jumped right in. That's accurate. These kinds of people have no place here. Remove them from this place. The workers started coming up to Sarah and myself, who were still sitting there looking composed. The atmosphere in the room became strained. However, a voice suddenly boomed. Wait, Sarah, are you the executive officer and president of Anderson Cleaning Services? Eric's father, wearing an elegant tailcoat, was the one whose voice was filled with horror. As part of their marriage agreement, Eric had lately taken over Harrison Industries from this man. Yes, this is my wife, Sarah, the executive officer of Anderson Cleaning Services, and I am the president of the company. As the bride's classmates from middle school, we were invited today. The visitors on Eric's side of the room started whispering to each other as I was speaking. The bride and groom had earlier ordered us to leave, claiming that our labor was filthy and humiliating and that poverty was contagious. Sarah gently remarked, "Please forgive us for staying despite their request." With a pale face, Eric's father started yelling at the head table. "Eric, please apologize to these folks right away." However, Eric and Lily answered with a half smile, Dad, what are you talking about? Why should we offer an apology to individuals such as them? Who the heck are these people exactly?" Eric's father yelled again, his voice wavering. "Eric, do you not know who Anderson Cleaning Services is?" "What?" "Anderson Cleaning Services," Eric whispered. His face paled more and more as the reality set in. "You mean our main client. Wait." Eric's statements caused Lily to gasp in disbelief. "That's accurate. We recently hired your organization to create cleaning equipment for our company," Sarah muttered. "We recently placed a second order for the creation of a new vacuum model as well." Sarah is really the daughter of the people who own Anderson Cleaning Services, which I joined after relocating to the city. Sarah's parents actually owned and operated the company I started when I moved to the city. These days, the company not only offers cleaning services, but it also creates its own brand of cleaning supplies and just joined the online marketplace. It is therefore one of the few cleaning companies that has expanded to become a $100 million company, employing almost 6,500 people at its headquarters alone. I started from the bottom and worked my way up, helping to create popular cleaning products that led to my promotion to head of product planning at the headquarters. I met Sarah there, and we finally tied the knot. Even though Sarah and her family were aware of my limited education, they extended a warm welcome to me. My desire to return the favor made me throw myself into my task. I was supposed to succeed Sarah's father as business president when he retired last year. Do you have any idea how much money we would lose if we lost our contract with Anderson Cleaning Services? Eric's father screamed at his kid, who was shaking uncontrollably, his face now a beet red. Something similar to this. I was ignorant of this. That's because, after taking over the business, you didn't treat your responsibilities with respect. You've even forgotten a significant client's face. I never should have given you control of the company. Taking Eric by the collar, Eric's father stormed up to the head table and dragged him over to where we were. Then he pulled Eric down hard, forcing him to bow. Please accept my apology. I implore you to pardon me. Eric's father bowed next to his son and said, "We cannot afford to lose such a critical project that our company's future depends on." I apologize sincerely. Please pardon me. Eric bowed too and started to perspire heavily, dropping droplets of sweat to the ground. Sarah turned to face me as I watched this scene. "Mason, what are your plans for that? He's been let go. Clearly, he is unfit to serve as president." My former classmates gasped when I said this because they had no idea how much power I actually held. In a panic, Eric's father interrupted. Naturally, I made a mistake by entrusting him with the business. I'm not going to forgive him. I made a mistake by ordering fresh merchandise as a wedding present. The visitors of Harrison Industries let forth cries of shock. I even witnessed Ryan, the sales director, pass out in a panic attack. I made the decision to place a sizable order with Harrison Industries for new items after learning at the reunion that Lily was getting married to the president of the company. I really thought Lily wanted to make up with me, so I accepted her invitation to the wedding, but she completely betrayed my expectations. Lily, who had been observing the scene with a puzzled expression, became enraged and yelled at me. "Why do you think you were speaking in such a manner? Whichever position you hold, vice president or president. Lily has to worry more about herself," I shot back, giving her a scowl. "Harrison Industries will incur huge losses if we close our doors. You might not be able to live the opulent life you were boasting about as a wife staying at home." Lily's face became white as she at last comprehended how serious things were. "Mason, let's go." I wrapped my arm around Sarah's shoulder and left the room, with Sarah, Eric, and his father still wrestling on the floor, and Lily standing motionless, her face pale. We did, in fact, end our contracts with Harrison Industries after that. As a result, the business sustained significant financial losses, and Eric lost his presidency in order to accept accountability. Eric lost everything, including his wealth and reputation, after his father disowned him. After their disagreements became regular, it appears that Eric and Lily decided to get a divorce because they had nothing left to cling on to. After her family abandoned her and she had no one else to turn to, Lily is said to be living alone and working in the nightlife business. We have carried on living in harmony. We recently became parents to a gorgeous baby boy. Since then, Sarah and her family have been smitten with him. They are ecstatic. "I'm so happy that I met you, Sarah," I said. I used to feel like I had given up on life. I sincerely appreciate my younger self for acting on that day when I boarded the train. urgently looking for somewhere to belong, despite my fear. In the near future, if it's all right with you, I'd like you to visit my father's cemetery as well as my mother's. Sarah nodded and gave me a nice grin when I stated this quietly. Of course. I'm going to start cherishing every day and defend my family and the business we've created together. Would you like to get warm inside? I could hardly get by on my own, but one day, in the park, I helped a homeless mother and her daughter. I lived in abject poverty. I had no idea why I acted in that way. Then, the firm I worked for lost its president unexpectedly, and the vice president, who was the president's younger brother, took over as president. I was feeling really depressed after I was dismissed for an unknown cause. But the daughter said, "Welcome back," with a small smile when I arrived home. "You've put in a lot of effort." Alex is my name. I work at an office as a single 29-year-old. I go by Lex among my school pals. Though I'm not very cool, I think it's a nice nickname. With my black hair and glasses, I project a dismal picture that makes me seem very mediocre, if not below average. I don't actively interact with people, although I can be thoughtful of others. Above all, my living conditions tell you that I am impoverished. In my opinion, my place is worse than that of a struggling college student. My rent for this cheap flat is only $130 a month. Though there isn't a wall dividing the two rooms, the apartment is really just one large space. The fact that the toilet and bathroom are apart is only due to the age of the structure. The floor is old, the rooms are thinly divided by thin walls, and the kitchen is small. Even somewhat loud voices can be plainly heard, albeit it's not like you can hear every sound. There is hardly any privacy. I hear a couple arguing next door right now. It's intolerable since it's not just arguments. Sometimes I can hear their private moments. In addition to the sounds of the neighbors, I can hear loud music coming from open windows outside and the sounds of illegally modified bikes. I therefore retreat to my room to decompress during these boisterous periods. Even though I don't yell or shout, talking angrily to myself at a reasonable volume makes me feel a little better. Verbally releasing my pent-up worry lifts my spirits. I find it more satisfying to express it aloud, but some people feel putting it down is good. It's free, and the very mention of it lifts my spirits. Give up the loud noises already. I'm not shouting, so no one is bothered, and my neighbors probably don't even notice. But at my age, one subject that often comes up is what's known as the marriageable age. Yes, please, I would like a girlfriend. Not that it's something to boast about, but in my 29 years, I have never had a girlfriend. I can't now afford to have a partner, but some of my peers already have children. I don't have the money to support her, even if I did. My student loan debt is the main source of my extreme poverty, and I'm barely making ends meet on a job that barely covers my living expenses. Becoming a parent seems like a far-off dream. At the workplace, despite my struggles, I'm seen as a hard-working employee who completes tasks on time. When I got to work one day, I saw some coworkers chatting. James, one of my coworkers, rushed over to ask me what was going on. "Alex, there's been an incident." An incident? I had assumed there might have been embezzlement, but that was not the case. The president passed away suddenly. What? But as of yesterday, he was OK. That's why it's a sudden death. Mr. Bellamy, the president, had a distinguished appearance and was a dapper gentleman. He appeared to be an industrious man and always had a straight gait while wearing a suit. He appeared to be alert and steady on his feet, giving everyone in the office the impression that the company was still safe. I had seen him about the office a few times. Thus, everyone believed the company was in capable hands. Who do you think will be the next president? Well, there's probably going to be him, based on the hierarchy. Him. James was referring to Robert, the president's younger brother. Robert visited the office every now and then, But neither I nor the other staff members thought well of him. Why is he even the vice president? Because Mr. Bellamy was a family man at heart and could not leave them. Still, does he really produce any work? It was difficult for me to respond to this question. Robert was ultimately named the next president. It was logical since they couldn't hold onto the presidency indefinitely. If that occurred, other businesses may view us with contempt, and some might even attempt to profit from the circumstance. Nevertheless, we felt nervous because Robert would now be in charge of the business. This was due to Robert's lack of involvement in the business up until this point. I had my doubts that he even knew how the business operated. If you were going to be president, you would normally at least take a cursory look at management. Despite its small size, our company employed a respectable number of people. Providing for all of their families is a significant commitment. Robert did not really work as vice president, despite having that title. It seemed that several workers had witnessed him gambling on a regular basis. These games may be enjoyable when you win, but when you lose, they cost you a lot of money. And after a significant win, it's simple to get into the trap of thinking, next time for sure, and to keep putting money in, which leads to a losing streak. We were very uncomfortable knowing that Robert, the new president, had been engaging in such activities. However, there were more causes for concern regarding Robert. Oh man, I'm only feeling dread, James. I mean, there are rumors he messed up at his previous company too. Got it wrong. Do you mean that he ran afoul of his boss? Exactly. This was a widely recognized tale. Robert had a reputation for losing his anger and had already run afoul of his supervisor at his previous job. And that was only 6 months after his enlistment. I was first taken aback by it. Nowadays, most people prepare themselves for the ordeal of a new company's first year. Giving up after only 6 months seemed really self-centered. Then the benevolent Mr. Bellamy appointed his impoverished brother vice president, though it's likely that he also attempted to force him to work. It wouldn't have been much use even if he had forced him to perform the vice president's duties. Indeed, it is true. Now that he's president, I hope he grows a little more mature, James remarked. James had little chance of realizing his dream. Individuals are not easily changed. Emma from accounting had been in charge of most business affairs up to this point. Emma was a well-known yet enigmatic figure. None of us had ever seen her before or had any idea of her appearance. It was also widely known, though, that the former president possessed a great deal of faith in her. She was virtually a legendary character we never saw because she was constantly locked up in the accounting room. We had never had a conversation over the phone. As Robert assumed the presidency, I was curious about Emma's future. As an employee, however, there was little I could do about it. But my fears quickly came to pass. When Robert unveiled his policies in his inaugural speech as president, we were all taken aback. Robert, I'm the next president. There won't be any more leniency now that I'm in charge. I'm not sure how my brother handled things. I will not spare those who disobey my policies. I will fire them all. The older staff members clicked their tongues and mumbled things like stupid brother in response to the haughty and conceited speech. Going forward, a numerical goal will be discussed at every morning meeting. If it is not met, there will be a salary reduction. Put up a lot of effort and be organized. What? Yell my mind, though I didn't speak it aloud. While setting goals is one thing, cutting pay for not reaching them is just plain oppressive. Pay attention. At work, quick thinking, discernment, and decisiveness are crucial. Do not procrastinate in an attempt to accrue overtime compensation. That's simple for him to say, but in many cases, overtime is unavoidable. That's just the nature of the job. However, Robert would scream at the top of his lungs if the work was even slightly delayed, which made him incredibly unreasonable, possibly due to his ignorance of genuine work. As a result, I was under constant stress, yet I managed to get by. I turned down a drink invitation from my coworkers that day after working all day and went directly to the cheap supermarket close to my apartment. For the local impoverished students, this grocery always offered fantastic deals. However, they'd put more discount stickers right before closing time. I didn't hesitate to add several significantly reduced prepared meals to my basket. Maybe this is the supermarket's method of making sure they sell out of all of their prepared foods before the end of the day. Along with the salad, which was on sale for 80% less, I also swung the plastic bag I was using as a reusable shopping bag, which was ready to develop holes from frequent use, as I exited the store. In this late hour of the night, I was walking home when I noticed two women huddled together on a bench in a small, dark park. I would have ignored it if it had just been two women chatting in the park, but there was something strange about them, so I paused and just watched. Based on their similar looks, the two women appeared to be mother and daughter. It was close to 10:00 p.m. In addition, they were somewhat unclean and were dressed extremely casually for the occasion. I walked carefully into the park, listening to their chat while feigning to get a warm drink from the nearby vending machine. "Mom, I'm cold." "It's all right. Just get closer and snuggle." "Thanks, it's much better now." I knew they were a mother and daughter based on their conversation. It appeared like the mother was in her early 50s and the daughter was in her 20s. What became of them? Even though they were wearing branded clothing, their outfits were filthy. I thought of the weather report I had seen on the TV that morning. They warned that although it wouldn't rain, it will get rather chilly tonight. I had never met either of these people before. Although my sense of justice would not allow me to ignore them now that I had seen them, no one would hold it against me if I left. Even so, I wasn't sure if approaching them was appropriate. I couldn't just leave them behind, but I also didn't want to be thought of as a criminal attempting to transport women to my location. Well, nothing happens now. I decided what I wanted to do and went up to the mother and daughter. "I apologize, but I'm not a suspicious person. I don't intend to harm you in any way. It may sound a little optimistic, but the news indicates that it will get really cold tonight. Would you like to come to my apartment if you have nowhere else to go? I realize I'm a total stranger. You can at least warm up in this rundown abode." "What?" "I'll do nothing, I swear. All I can do is offer you a warm bath. I promise. I'll even leave the room if you'd like. Simply put, I don't think it's healthy for women to be alone." The woman needed to reassure me since I was starting to lose my train of thought. "All right, I apologize. What made you come over here? We have nowhere to go and are homeless, as you can see." "Well, isn't it natural to help someone in need?" "What?" "Of course, if you think it's none of my business, I apologize, but no, it's not that." "Then, kindly accompany me. You can at least get warm, even though I can't offer much." I frantically invited the girl and mother to my rundown flat. I offered them the rear room and allowed them to use the bath, even though they appeared astonished by the location to which they had been taken. Since I had no women's clothing, I offered them an old school-issue tracksuit. "I've washed it, though it might smell a bit like mothballs. It's all right. You've already helped us so much. For food, all I have is instant noodles and some prepared meals." "But that's your meal, isn't it?" "Yes, so let's share it." I heated up the prepared meals and made 2 packages of instant noodles, dividing them into bowls and plates as I waited for the two of them to finish their bath. My impoverished bachelor's house has mismatched plates around. Although it was a little awkward, there was nothing I could do about it. Sincerely, I was relieved that I had kept some extra forks and spoons. "I'm sorry I invited you so confidently, but this is all I can offer," I said. "No worries at all." They shook their heads at my apology, but we still appreciate it. Their generosity brought me joy. They introduced themselves once the 3 of us had completed our little supper. "This is Catherine, my daughter. My name is Emma. We haven't had a warm bath or dinner in a very long time," Emma remarked. "My name is Alex. Alex, Are you not just full of justice and kindness? Emma said this with a smile. No, I'm just poor. However, you were helpful to us. The majority of individuals would simply turn away, particularly if they were having difficulties. Additionally, I'm sure you were hesitant to welcome women into your house. It's true that I was really skeptical. There are plenty of people in this world who would profit from kindness, but Emma and Catherine didn't seem to be that type of person. Please stay here if you have nowhere else to go. Seeing a light on when I go home from work gives me comfort. I won't force you. It's a rundown apartment. But if it's not too much work, it's a modest, old place that can at least keep you warm in the winter. James would probably laugh and tell me I was too kind if I told him about this. Even so, after just one day, I couldn't bring myself to throw them out. It's like discovering a stray cat and then experiencing the heartbreak of having to give it up once more because you are unable to care for it. Emma and Catherine glanced at each other, paused to consider, then turned to face me and said, "We'll accept your hospitality," grinning with relief. I offered them the rear room as I had intended, and to maintain their privacy, I draped a bath towel in the space left by the thin wall. I made a bed in the kitchenette area by spreading cushions. After giving the two women the folding bed and mattress, that evening ended. Emma left early the following morning, claiming to have some errands to run. I didn't want to be a burden on my run-down flat, so I couldn't say anything as she was leaving to find another somewhere to stay. But Emma did not come back that day or the day after that. In other words, Catherine and I were the only residents of the flat, and I was strangely happy with our new situation. Ultimately, I could now return to a warm, well-lit room instead of the rundown, dark, and lonely chamber I had before. It goes without saying that I began to look forward to getting home from work. "Hi, Alex. I'm back." When I came back, Catherine smiled at me, and I smiled back. In the small kitchen, Catherine would prepare delectable dishes. There weren't many ingredients in the fridge, so on my way home, I'd pick up whatever seemed like it was needed from the regular cheap grocery, and she'd make it into a meal. It was like magic to me. It became a turning moment in my life to have someone wait for me when I returned home. I became aware of the value of people supporting one another after meeting Catherine. I was shocked to see Catherine at work a few days after it started to become the standard for her to be there when I got home. What the hell is this? On my desk, there was a piece of paper. Regardless of how many times I cleaned my face or massaged my eyes, the phrases remained the same. It was a notice of termination. No way. Now that Catherine was living with me, I had to increase my income. But we'd be homeless together if I got fired. I went directly to the president's office since I could not accept this unilateral termination. Robert was sighing heavily as I loudly knocked twice and opened the door without waiting for a response. "Robert, are you there too?" How annoying. "What?" Not sure why I was there, I asked him, not understanding his statement. "Robert, what is the meaning of this?" "I don't know, but isn't this termination notice from you?" I gave him a hard slap on his desk for being fired. Throwing a couple more notices of termination onto his desk, Robert appeared irritated. "You're the fifth person today." "What?" "Yes, 4 more workers have just barged in carrying similar termination notices. I cannot recall releasing any of them." "Is that true?" What good would it do me to lie? I scowled at Robert's irritated response. Robert would not gain by my termination. But then, who was giving the workers these notices of termination? I had never been a huge problem for anyone, nor had I ever inspired hatred or resentment in others. Well, this is real though. What? Robert grabbed the notice of termination bearing my name off the desk while I was still in astonishment. And before I could stop him, he stamped it with his permission. "Wait, please." "Don't wait. This serves as formal notice of termination. Gather your belongings and exit the business. Presumably, one of the executives is phoning the ineffective ones." Robert then chowed me down like a beast outside the workplace. When I got back to my desk, I saw James was furious and had received a notice of termination as well. James, however, laughed about it because he had been thinking about changing jobs since Robert became president and thought this was an excellent opportunity. Envious of James' upbeat disposition, I packed away my desk. Catherine gave me her regular greeting when I got home. "Hey, hello. You're early for today." Catherine smiled kindly to greet me. I told her everything that had transpired, forcing a grin. "Actually, I got fired today." Catherine smiled mischievously, rather than looking surprised. She poured me a cup of hot coffee at the folding table she called a dining table, and I followed her, startled by her response. Taking a taste of the coffee made me feel a little less anxious. "First, thank you for your hard work." "No, it's..." Catherine started talking, and I felt that instead of squandering time, I should start considering the future. Let me reintroduce myself first. Catherine Bellamy is my name. Does that ring any bells? What? Bellamy is my last name. Samuel Bellamy was the name of my father. What? Yes, my father was the former president of the company you worked for. I was speechless at what Catherine had said. More than anything, I was perplexed as to why it hadn't occurred to me earlier. It's not as if the Bellamy surname is particularly common. My mother and I were ejected from our house by my uncle Robert following the death of my father. We ended up being vagrants. He left the house with everything, even our savings. Though I was aware of his rudeness, I was unaware of his extreme badness. After all, Robert was still Catherine's uncle, so I apologize. Continually calling him a jerk would not help her feelings. It's all right. He is the ultimate jerk, the king of jerks. I couldn't help but chuckle at such outstanding assessment. It had been 1 week since we were ejected on the day you discovered us. Really, we were at our wits' end. For this reason, my mother and I cannot help but feel obligated to you for our thanks. You deserve all of that, Alex. Our decision is to exact revenge on Robert. Revenge. I got shares from my father, which he doesn't even know I own, although he could not know that. It's demonstrated by the fact that she wasn't dismissed first. My understanding of Catherine's words was incomplete. When she said Emma was dismissed, what did it mean? My mother Emma works at the company as an accountant. What? Not at all. I had no choice but to speak up. My father had total faith in my mother's accounting abilities despite the fact that my parents were no longer married. Although their relationship didn't work out, they made excellent business partners. I recalled hearing gossip that Emma, who Mr. Bellamy trusted, was also well liked by the managers. They used to claim the business would be oak as long as Emma took care of the bookkeeping. Emma probably stayed hidden in the accounting room because she didn't want anyone to find out that she was managing her ex-husband's accounts. She most likely wished to prevent any needless hassles in light of their divorce. My mother has made all the arrangements over the last 3 days. In an attempt to close the business without Robert realizing, she has started firing staff members one by one. Looking back, as you say, there were undoubtedly indicators. I was the 5th person that day to receive a notice of termination, according to Robert. His demeanor suggests that he must have also gotten termination letters from multiple other employees. After the new company is established, my mother intends to rehire everyone she let go of. The shares are what I own. Robert is not qualified to lead the business. Catherine grinned and had a leader's confidence. Although she seemed like a kind woman to me, she turned out to be really amazing. There was a stir at the workplace a few days after this chat. What? Are you letting me go? This is absurd. That day's meeting saw the board of directors decide to fire Robert with unanimous consent. The board's decision was final and could not be changed. Robert, you can either come work for me or get a new job on your own. What will it be then? You believed in quick thinking, sound judgment, and decisiveness, as I seem to remember. Make a decision quickly. Robert immediately announced his departure from the company as a result of Catherine's pressure. Considering that he had just been at the top of the organization the day before, he must have detested the thought of working under his niece. He has pride in the wrong areas, which makes him a genuine problem. Nevertheless, Robert struggled and was unable to obtain a new employment. Reluctantly, Catherine agreed to keep him on staff as a handyman since she felt bad for him. "You're quite generous, Catherine. I believe I'm a fool too, but perhaps my father's genes ran in my family. Perhaps I'll come to regret it as well." Catherine grinned, her eyes dazzling. For my part, Catherine and I eventually started dating after moving into the same room. To put it briefly, Catherine and I have started dating. I've finally broken the habit of never having a girlfriend. I could have danced with delight. I was so happy. Although Catherine expressed her satisfaction with remaining in this apartment, I thought of transferring to a larger home. She expressed her enjoyment of the warmth and intimacy it offered. Though our lifestyle isn't very opulent, we'll manage as long as we help one another. I think so, and I'm going to stay with her going forward. Hazel is the name of my wife. We got married 10 years after dating for 10 years, having first met in high school. Hazel was a happy woman with a cute smile, but she wasn't exactly the beauty queen kind. We were blessed with a daughter, Michelle, not long after we were married. My wife was a loving person who had always given me encouragement. Hazel was working part-time at the time and taking care of our child and my mom, who was living with us, as she battled cancer. Though I hoped she wouldn't put in too much overtime, she kept working to support our family's budget. She would leave my mom with a visiting nurse, drop Michelle off at daycare, and go to work. She would constantly say, "It's better to eat healthy," and she would go food shopping to prepare home-cooked meals, regardless of how exhausted she was. On my days off, I pitched in around the house and, if feasible, drove my mom to her doctor's appointments. My mother passed away after 3 years of this life. Following the burial, Hazel vanished out of nowhere. We had just begun to settle down at this point. A letter that she had left behind. The letter expressed regret. "Divorce is what I want. Don't look for me, please." All she took with her was the bare minimum. I had no idea why she had left. My mind could not comprehend what had occurred so abruptly. When I immediately contacted her cell, all I got was a message stating that the number was out of service. Is that possible? Had she absconded with someone? Though I couldn't imagine she would have an affair, the thought did enter my mind. As usual, Hazel remarked, "I will always love you and Michelle," the night before she vanished. I was completely taken aback by her abrupt disappearance. I would have wanted to talk to her about it if there was something that was so serious that she wanted a divorce. It was unbelievable to me that a single letter would be the end of it all. I felt a wave of frustration go over me. I pondered whether there was something about me that didn't satisfy her. Admittedly, I didn't appreciate her commitment. She was always there smiling, so I never really thought she might be having problems or had a change of heart. There was so much regret. I believe I cried until my eyes dried out. We've been waiting for Hazel to return ever since, but she never did. I tried phoning all of her pals, but nobody had any idea of her location. Hazel mentioned that she had a sister who was living overseas, but they hadn't seen one another in a while. Nor did I have her contact information. She had no family left because her parents had died when she was a little child. Nobody was there for support. What happened to her on Earth? Why did she walk away? I was finding it harder and harder to decipher what Hazel was thinking. Still, I never went through with a divorce because I wanted to have faith in her. I've been parenting Michelle by myself ever since. Not to boast, but she turned out to be a nice kid who never went rebellious. Michelle is an excellent chef. Her scrambled eggs are delectable for breakfast. It tasted a little like the scrambled eggs my wife used to prepare, but in a soothing way. Michelle started to look more and more like Hazel as she developed. Her casual mannerisms, her wide-open lips in moments of surprise, and her smile, which was concealed by her narrowed eyes, were all reminiscent of Hazel from her school days. It makes me think of her, and seeing my kid made me feel as though my heart would break. Michelle approaches me with a broad smile and says, "Get over your sadness, Dad. Go ahead, smile." Her face reminded me so much of Hazel's, and it made me feel really sad. Michelle was the one reason I had to survive. I doubt I could have gotten over the shock without her. Michelle completed her middle and high school education at neighborhood schools. Instead of attending college, she entered the workforce. She may have given up on college because she didn't want to bother me, but she is a gentle person. I never made it up the corporate ladder as a low-paid salaried worker who wasn't very competent at his job. I'm still a normal employee. Considering how hard my daughter is working, it's very pitiful. Michelle continued to live with me even after she started a career and moved out on her own. "You can live your life the way you want," I would always tell her. She would, however, chuckle and declare, "I am living the way I want to. Besides, if I went, you couldn't cook, would you, Dad? I can't just up and move out on my own." The fact that she decided to stick by my side made me very happy. However, Michelle will eventually meet and marry a beautiful man. I get sad occasionally, even if it's still in the future. This year, my daughter turned 20, and we got a letter on her birthday. It was addressed to Michelle and me and came in a sweet flowery envelope. I noticed that Hazel's name was scribbled there when I looked at who it was from. I stood there stunned as Michelle emerged from behind me. "Mom," muttered she. When we opened the mail, we discovered a note written in Hazel's recognizable penmanship. Without a doubt, Hazel wrote it. Her writing is exquisite and feminine. We carefully reviewed the letter. "I apologize for leaving you so quickly. I bet you're mad at me for being so self-centered. Considering how much you two must have worried and endured, I am overcome with regret." Tears ran down Michelle's face and mine as we read. "There's something I want to give to you both," the letter said. "Please go visit Claire. It's with her." Hazel's twin sister is Claire. Years had passed since she moved overseas, and Hazel claimed she hadn't heard from her. But the letter had Claire's contact details. Claire answered the phone when I called, seeming both relieved and a little dejected. "I'm happy you got in touch with me," she said. In her letter, Hazel mentioned that she has something to offer us. I inquired, "Now, where is she?" Claire said simply, "Let's get together and talk." A few days later, Michelle and I visited Claire's apartment after obtaining her address. She appeared to have come back from overseas a few years prior. We greeted each other and were then shown into the living room. "I appreciate you coming all the way here today," Claire remarked. She said, glancing at Michelle, "You've come a long way. You resemble my sister exactly." My heart nearly broke at what she said. "Where is Hazel?" I asked. "We'd like to see her." "I'll take you to her," murmured Claire, casting a downward glance. "When we arrive, I'll go over everything." We arrived to a major hospital after she drove us for around an hour. I ignored it and thought, ***, what does this mean? Is Mom ill?" Our brains were racing. Claire told us that Hazel had early onset dementia, her face sad. Hazel couldn't bring herself to inform us that physicians had recommended she be admitted to the hospital and undergo rehabilitation. She didn't want to be a burden to us or for us to see her progressively lose sight of her own family, which is why she left home. The truth, she reasoned, would only make me more anxious. Hazel chose to leave us for that reason, which is why she was admitted to the hospital. The only one who knew about it was Claire. When I learned that Hazel's illness had gotten so bad that she had lost the ability to recognize even Claire, I immediately started crying. Michelle was also in tears. It appears that on Michelle's 20th birthday, Hazel begged Claire to deliver the letter before she forgot about her family. Claire produced a ring and a necklace from a tiny jewelry box she had taken out of her purse. Claire said, "She asked me to give these to you too." Hazel had always loved this necklace, and it was a gem. When we went on our first date as students, it was the first item I bought for her. What about the ring? Our wedding ring was in it. With my pay, I was unable to purchase anything luxurious, but Hazel had shed many happy tears and exclaimed, "Thank you, thank you." "And this one too," Claire said, passing us a letter. It was full of memories from a vacation we did as a family, including the time I fell over in another amusement park and made a fool of myself, and the time we went to an amusement park where Michelle got too excited and hurt herself. While she still recalled, Hazel jotted down these memories. When Michelle turned 20, she asked me to bring this letter, the necklace, and the ring. Claire clarified that Hazel had given Claire, her sister, her sentiments and wishes. Claire blurted out, "I really wanted to contact you sooner, but I couldn't break the promise I made with my sister." She was crying. "No, Claire, you have my gratitude." "Claire, thank you for protecting Hazel's sentiments," I said. "Thank you," Michelle added in appreciation. So it was that we were able to see Hazel again after 10 years. Claire opened the hospital room door and saw an elderly Hazel with gray splotches in her hair. "Hey, hi there. I take it you're from the room next door? And who could this charming lady in Guy be? Good to meet you." I had considered what I would say to my wife if we crossed paths again. It was something I had been considering for decades. However, I was unable to say anything when it was finally time to look her in the eye. In addition, I had never thought it was circumstance like this. My chest constricted and tears started to flow as soon as our eyes locked. "Oh no, why are you crying all the time? Has anything depressing occurred?" Hazel gave us a troubled expression. "No, we came to clean the hospital today, and I guess the disinfectant got in my eyes," I lied clumsily. "Ah, I see. Take care," she retorted. Michelle caressed my back as we left the room, her crimson eyes pleading, "Smile, Dad, smile." My biggest ally has always been Hazel. She was the one who loved me the most. And yet, I had seen no signs of her suffering. I felt stupid for not seeing that. Michelle said to me, "Even though Mom may have forgotten about us, the memories we shared as a family will always be treasured." For her, I believe it's the same. Though her heart remembers, her head may forget. From now on, let's provide Mom as much help as we can. Yeah, you're right. Feeling incredibly proud of my amazing daughter, I broke down in tears once more. Neither the memory Hazel has forgotten nor the time we spent apart can be recovered. However, I want to support her as much as I can and be there for her if it helps her in any way. Michelle and I went to see Hazel whenever we could starting the following day. We discussed everything and anything, including everyday matters, with her. Chatting really activates the brain, doesn't it? Hazel asked, appearing to get excited. Our old family pictures were on the shelf in her hospital room. Isn't this picture amazing? It evokes such sentimental memories. I experience the same thing when we communicate. Very reassuring, Hazel remarked, grinning at Michelle and myself. Michelle and I grinned back at Hazel, saying, "We feel the same way," and we all laughed as a family. I had been yearning for these days so long, to be with my wife and daughter. Our relationship as a priceless family will never alter, even if she forgets. I want to stand at her side indefinitely. No high school certificate and all equipment is worthless. Johnson, the second-generation president of Northside Machinery, told me, "We have no salary for you, so you're fired. But as the person in charge of this company's most vital machine, it's evident what will happen if he fires me. Who is going to keep that machine maintained? We're not going to use that whole piece of junk anymore, so we don't need you. I'm quite attached to this business. I stayed on staff because of this, even when the president changed and inadvertent changes kept occurring. But I finally had enough of his despotism and chose to step down. A $10 million apparatus malfunctioned. Make the necessary corrections right away. I created it, but no can do because I don't like you. Unfortunately, when the machine broke down the following day, Johnson called me in tears. But I will not pardon him for taking advantage of Northside machinery, which I, President Christopher, established until now. I was only satisfied when I heard his terrified voice on the other end of the telephone. I am 63-year-old Samuel. I am a regular employee of Northside Machinery, where I make machine parts. I've always liked playing around with machines, therefore my work, which is largely involved in the production of machinery, was my calling. I still do it for that reason, even though I'm 63 years old. Actually, I only completed middle school, and I can't say I'm socially proud of my job. That being said, I am able to work without feeling bad about my educational history because of Northside Machinery and Christopher, the company's founder. I stopped attending classes in the midst of high school because I was having relationship problems. I lost all motivation to go, so I stayed home and fiddled with machines, taking apart parts and screwdrivers. Even though I knew this couldn't continue, I was unable to motivate myself to return to school. 2 years my senior, Christopher, was the one who contacted me. He had protected me during middle and primary school. Then, he invited me to join his company when I turned 22. I'm considering launching a company. You're competent with machinery, correct? Would you like to work for me? But I didn't even graduate from high school. Your level of education is irrelevant. I am aware of your diligence and skill at assembling machines. Even searching among recent college graduates, I couldn't find someone more ideal. What say you then? At that point, I found it difficult to think about returning to high school or college, and I was concerned about how I would find employment in such an environment. I was pleased to be approached and valued by Christopher, so I took the decision to work hard for him and join the business he was about to launch. That's how Northside Machinery was founded by Christopher and me. Since you are more knowledgeable about machines than I am, Samuel, please let me know if you see anything. I will do my best to honor your viewpoint. He trusted me enough to grant me considerable latitude in terms of growth and production. Even though I was under a lot of strain, I knew a lot about the manufacturing of machinery. As a result, compared to other employees, I could see what needed to be done at this company more clearly. In reality, I want to construct a processing machine. We could boost earnings and streamline production with a machine like that. I see, but can we build such a machine? It will take time, but I'll make it with the employees during our free time. Are you truly capable of that? I understand. Tell me if you require any supplies or equipment. I am depending upon you. Following that, I created a processing machine. We took our time, working with the staff, and built it. The operations of Northside Machinery were centered around the processing equipment. That's incredible, Samuel. I'm so happy I found you. I'm grateful, Christopher. You put your trust in me, so I felt obligated to earn it by working hard. Christopher was ecstatic to hear that the processing machine was finished. I only completed middle school, yet he still reached out to me because he trusted me. I believe I was able to pay him back. Naturally, the machine wasn't flawless right away, but I fixed any problems and added features as needed. Northside Machinery's earnings grew steadily as the machine's processing efficiency increased. We kept using that machine to collaborate for the next 40 years, but we both got older. Christopher made the decision to step down as president at the age of 65, saying, "It's about time to pass the presidency to the next employee." It seemed expected, given his age. I had to say goodbye to Christopher with some reluctance when his retirement day came. Richard Johnson, a guy in his 40s, succeeded Christopher as the second president after he retired. Christopher had proposed that I run for the next president, but I turned him down because I felt it would be too much. I will now serve as Northside Machinery's president. I refuse to put up with slackers. Work diligently, everyone." The staff laughed at his haughty greeting. "Why is that mentality there? I'm the new president. Let's celebrate." When they heard him speak, the staff grudgingly clapped. Then Johnson grinned triumphantly, clearly satisfied. Johnson was the department's first head of sales. His excellent sales record and amiable disposition led to his selection as the new president. But it was evident from this greeting that his amiability toward superiors was only a ruse to further his career. Johnson went on, "Even with the employees' growing mistrust, I won't accept the same lax management as previously. Put in a lot of effort during business hours and help the company make money. Save all of your money. We can't afford to pay for your idleness." Is it really necessary to say that in the first greeting? The staff members had to nod in agreement without giving it any thought. Christopher had retired, but they might report his true character to him. He is no longer a reliable source. For the time being, we have to figure out how to maintain Northside Machinery on our own. Johnson was our first boss when we started. Naturally, the first thing Johnson attacked with his pathetic greeting was our pay. "Don't you think the pay is too high? Do you truly produce enough work to warrant this amount? It is not necessary to offer such a large bonus. Come on, let's chop it." How come? That presents a challenge. It was intolerable to have their bonuses and pay abruptly reduced. Johnson ignored the protests of one of the employees. Johnson also screamed at staff members for unimportant things. "Who turned on this light? I instructed you to switch it off right away after using it." Under such strain, the staff could only say, "I'm sorry," again and time again. "I instructed you to use the least amount of materials possible." Who removed everything. "Well, to work efficiently, we need this much." "It doesn't concern me. Take charge of efficiency on your own. Don't let the business's expenses go to waste." Yes, the staff members were worn out over time due to the continual ranting for little stuff. "Excuse me, President Johnson, this tool broke, and I need to replace it." "What? It cracked? Samuel, it had to have been your fault. Accept responsibility and get a replacement on your own." Since we had to pay for repairs out of our own wallets, we were unable to obtain replacements for damaged tools. No one was reporting broken goods these days. By concealing these problems, the staff was able to continue working, but ultimately the primary processing unit failed. "Hey, why isn't work getting done? You had better not be taking it easy." "No, this machine stopped working." "What? Up until today, it was functioning. It must have been broken by someone." The workers appeared on the verge of tears, terrified they would be held accountable. The development of this gadget cost $10 million. It would be awful if we had to pay for it. When I saw how serious things were, I hurried over. "President Johnson, allow me to examine this. Since I created this machine, I am the one who can identify the potential issue." I quickly identified the malfunctioning component, made the necessary adjustments, and rectified it. This should work now. The machine had been absolutely silent previously, but it began to function again when we ran a test run. That is accurate. Many thanks for it. The staff members appeared incredibly relieved. "Hey, what's wrong with this device? If it breaks down that quickly, it's a worthless item. It's had 40 years of use. I've been adjusting it to keep it going because it's very worn out." I was honest when I described the machine's state. I intended to direct the discussion toward changing out components or proposing a new apparatus. Johnson, though, misinterpreted what I said. "What? You're in charge of keeping it up. Then you were to blame for the machine's malfunction. This machine has been there for a while, but it was still functional up until this point, right? You must have done shoddy maintenance if it stopped." I wanted to pull my hair out because I couldn't get through to him. I've been doing my hardest to maintain it, but some pieces are beyond repair due to wear and tear over time. We need new parts in order to keep it operating more dependably. Not at all. I'm not purchasing any new components. Why should I invest money on an equipment this outdated? President Johnson, the argument that just because something has worked so far doesn't mean it will continue to work. He has to be adaptable in his decision-making as president. But Johnson doesn't have that viewpoint. It's obvious he views Northside machinery merely as a means of generating revenue. Anyway, take better care of it going forward. If it malfunctions once more, I'll charge you for the repairs. Your careless labor eventually impacts the revenues of the organization as well as other employees. Samuel, it's only natural. Total accountability. Perform your duties correctly. Johnson turned to leave after that. I talked to the staff while I watched him go. Thank you, Samuel. There is absolutely no issue. However, since Johnson took office, things have become more difficult. That is accurate. This gadget is aged, as anyone can see. Since I created this processing machine, I take great pride in it and never skimp on maintenance. But after 40 years of use, several sections of the equipment are beyond repair with routine maintenance. Nevertheless, I'll just have to put up with it for the benefit of this company. Christopher and I built Northside machinery. I don't want it to collapse or go into decay because of this. I put up with Johnson's despotism in order to keep the business safe. Looks like you're working hard on the maintenance. It had been a week since my conversation with Johnson. The equipment had not broken down yet since I had been extremely cautious with the upkeep. But it was only a question of time. If parts weren't replaced, the machine will malfunction very soon. Also, there's something I need to tell you today. What is it? Old tools are trash, and I don't have a high school degree. You're fired because we don't have any money for you. What? I was taken aback when I received an unexpected notice. But firing me so suddenly. The president made this choice. You will comply, of course. But if I leave, who will maintain that machine? We're not going to use that old piece of junk anymore, so we don't need you. I had no reply to that. Despite my distaste for Johnson, I felt compelled to stay because of the machine. You're merely a middle school graduate, by the way. I see why you're so illiterate. You can't comprehend my way of thinking because of this. I became enraged at his remarks and retaliated violently. I am indeed a high school dropout, but I have contributed to this company all this time. Stop being so hot. I labeled you a dropout. Are you offended? You have been trying to hide your lack of education, but that will not work with me as president. I'm not fooled by you. Johnson's voice was arrogant. The reason the machines keep breaking down is that there is a dropout maintaining them. It makes sense. Well, the issue is resolved by terminating you. As soon as I heard Johnson's words, I became furious. I'd wanted business as usual at Northside Machinery. I had put up with Johnson's tyranny for so long because of this. But this is not the Northside Machinery I knew as a child. I've fully lost interest in this company, and I've accepted the notice of termination. Comprehensive. I'm going to step down. Yes, leave now. It is a waste of money to pay you. Observing this significant enterprise being destroyed is exasperating. Without me, it will be disastrous, but I don't give a damn anymore. I made the decision to quit the company because I could stand it no longer. Frustrated, I packed up my personal items and headed home. My family was taken aback by my rage, but I assured them it was little. After doing the bare minimum of chores, I went to bed because it was late. Still, I have little doubt Johnson will come to regret my dismissal. My phone rang the day after I retired when I was taking a nap in bed. Johnson's name came up on the screen, which was to be expected. What could he want now that he'd dismissed me? With this thought in mind, I took the call. Hello. The $10 million apparatus isn't working. Without even saying hello, his first words were, "Fix it immediately." The processing machine appeared to have malfunctioned. It broke the day after I retired, which was when I had assumed it may happen at any time. What's this about the machine costing $10 million to develop? Johnson asked in a worried voice. Furthermore, I'm unable to locate another device anywhere that has the same features. There is no way to replace it. Why didn't you inform me earlier? Considering your demeanor, I assumed you had already made plans to replace it. Despite your degree, did you really not think about what would happen when you fired me? No. He must not have considered how to replace the machine because he was too busy counting money and making the staff work. Such ineptitude is not befitting of the presidency. Since we can't replace it, I attempted to get someone else to perform the maintenance, but nobody is familiar with how it operates. Everyone insisted that only you could manage it, even after I gave them the order to correct it. That's right. Is it accurate to say you created that device? Come fix it responsibly if that's the case. I developed it, but no can do since I don't like you. Unfortunately. I co-founded Northside Machinery with Christopher, and he destroyed it for financial gain. That's why I hate Johnson. I can't forgive him for it. Naturally, I won't assist him at this time. Avoid saying that. The date for delivery is drawing near. In addition to having to pay a penalty fee and apologize to the client if the machine breaks down. Can't you pay it with all the savings you forced on the employees? Obviously not. You can't just turn around and leave. I'll hold you liable for the damages if you decline to assist. Make an effort if you can. I did not damage the device. Actually, I've been trying to fix it the entire time, but you won't replace the parts. Who is to blame for the machine going down is obvious. Furthermore, as I have already resigned, I am no longer in charge of maintaining it. Johnson, perhaps recognizing I had a point, didn't counter-argument. I bet the guy on the other end of the line is gnashing his teeth. I wish you had purchased the parts at that time. But you argued that I was solely to blame. I'll never forget your treatment to me. All right, I'll get the parts right now, so please return. I won't, I promise. I detest you. Do you know how it felt for us to work for you? Damn you, bastard with no heart. You haven't worked for this company for very long, have you? Are you not attached to it in any way? Yes, I do feel a connection to this. I put a lot of effort into running the business under Johnson because of this. But because of him, even that emotion is no longer present. Northside Machinery is a complete disaster because of you. I no longer feel any connection to this company. Farewell. I hung up, figuring there was no use in listening any longer. I proceeded to block calls coming from Johnson and Northside Machinery. I felt a great sense of relief after telling Johnson all I wanted to say. I then conducted phone interviews with former staff members regarding the business and Johnson. There's no need for us to stay either, especially since you were fired and the company is in such disarray. All of the workers are turning in their letters of resignation. The expressions on their faces are priceless. Everyone appears to be quite relieved. Is that so? He had been at Northside Machinery for about 20 years, working in accounting. Everyone persevered for the good of the organization, feeling obligated to President Christopher. However, after I was let go, they lost patience with me. I was the one keeping the business afloat. It was true, and hearing this embarrassed me a little, that Christopher and I founded the business. Being trusted by the staff made me feel proud as well. President Johnson attempted to place the blame on us after the machine broke down. It's absurd. It's obvious that he fired you. No matter how loud he yells, the machine won't be fixed. Actually, all would have been well had he just spent a bit more on the equipment and workspace. However, he was always doing pointless things. Yes, without a doubt. Yes, the findings of the probe are in. I'll send them to you via email. Thanks, I appreciate it. The email containing the findings of the investigation arrived later. I smirked as I looked over the paperwork. Johnson wouldn't be able to wriggle out with this much evidence. I unblocked his number after doing the required steps. Johnson gave me another call a few days later. He must have known he was blocked because he kept attempting to contact. He was so determined to get in touch with me that he continued to do so even after I told him how much I despised him. Johnson yelled at me as soon as the connection connected, "Hey, Samuel. Have you not been returning my calls?" "Obviously. What's the point of my answering your calls?" "Samuel, you invented the device. Accountability all the way to the finish. Obviously, I was interested in finishing it. But there was no need for me to mindlessly fulfill my tasks if Johnson couldn't respect the machine or me. Given its state of disarray, what use does Northside machinery have to continue operating? We can't make delivery deadlines because of your resignation. The machine broke down, we have penalty fees to pay, and staff members are leaving. It's a catastrophe. Make it right." "I'm not to blame for that." "You're to blame for it," he shot back. "What did you say?" I'd inquired. I used the chance to clarify when I realized he was still confused. "I'd informed you that new parts were required because the equipment was aging. Did you decline to purchase them?" "Well, but it's not just that. You wrongfully sacked me and reduced my pay and incentives. It seems sense that the staff are leaving because they are afraid." He was unable to refute anything I said, so he remained silent. People are more than simply tools. They liked this company and trusted Chris Chopper. Therefore, that's why they worked here. After being abused because of your money-making plans, did you really believe they would stay? But I am the head of state. Naturally, I am free to manage this business any way I see fit. Do you have any idea how hard I had to work to get this job? He retaliated. It was impressive that he was so determined to become president, but it didn't matter to us. To be honest, I was enraged with him for damaging the business. Did you really think I'd unblock you for no reason? What do you mean? I'd wanted to share with you something. Knowing you would call, I unblocked you, and you walked straight into my trap. You have been embezzling money from Northside Machinery, and I have proof of this. The police will be coming for you shortly because I've already reported it to them. You had better accept that." "What?" Johnson, on the other end of the line, must have been wide-eyed. "Misappropriation. That can't possibly be real. And you've already reported it." "You're correct. I've told them about your transgressions. Embezzlement is a grave transgression. You will soon be visited by the police, and you will be held accountable." On the other end, Johnson was losing his mind. My charge had struck the mark. "How did you discover this? How did you carry out your research?" "I asked the accountant to investigate any questionable financial transactions. It appears that you took out substantial quantities of money on several occasions. It's not surprising, considering your regular fixation with money." Johnson had reduced incentives and pay, made workers save excessive amounts of money, and refused to update necessary equipment and tools. The idea of any money escaping his grasp was intolerable to him. "I have the office of president. I am free to spend corporate funds any way I see fit. To accuse me of embezzlement is absurd. Even a president will face penalties if they misuse company funds, and the punishment is much harsher than for a regular employee." My remarks seemed to make him shrink. "What sort of penalty? Will making a financial payment make things better?" "A president faces a prison sentence for significant embezzlement. You're going to jail then. While you can, savor your delicious food." "No way." I was cornered and reaping the consequences of Johnson's actions, considering how oppressive he had been against me. It was so nice to feel his worry over the phone. "Please forgive me, Samuel. Come on. I'll pay back the bonuses and salaries. I will even swap out the machine components. Is it not what you desired?" When Johnson finally realized how bad things were, he started to change his attitude. "Tell the staff that I'll make things right and request that they continue working as usual. If not, we're pretty well screwed. Even if you say that, I've already reported it to the police. Tell them it was an error when you call them back. So I won't be punished, Is that correct? Do you really believe it's that easy? Now that I've given the police proof of your embezzlement, there's no use in trying to get the report taken down. Conversely, I would just be charged as an accomplice. Please, Samuel. This time, I'll rehire you and promote you to manager. Isn't it a good deal? Johnson begged me, saying there was nothing left to do. We can claim the report was incorrect, the machine will be rectified, and business will restart if you return. All of the staff members will be back. Everything will be resolved. I beg you. He would most likely be pleading for forgiveness on his hands and knees if he were in front of me. I wish I could have seen it on the phone. All right, I'll come back if you pay me a higher salary than before. Oh, really? To what extent do you wish? Decide on a price. He most likely believed that it was a little price to pay to get things straightened out. His wallets must be rather full considering how much he embezzled. However, I informed him $100,000. What? $100,000 every single month? Could you please give me that money? Johnson had to be absolutely astounded by the pay I was demanding. For a man in his 60s, $100,000 a month was an absurd sum. That is really crazy. Do you actually earn that much money? You're lying to try to hurt me. You're not as frugal as I am. I'm telling the truth. I wouldn't lie about anything like this, even if the other person is a criminal. Observing his perplexity, I clarified. I've always enjoyed creating things, even as a little child. I've created a lot of things on my own over the years and patented them. My monthly income from that source is $100,000. Not at all. Someone earning $100,000 who graduated from middle school like you. That was probably a sum worth committing crimes for, to hear him tell it, but I earned it the right way. It seemed to hit him hard to face this fact. I never gave patents a second thought until Christopher made the suggestion. Before I applied, I had no idea how valuable my developments were. My inventions are currently used by numerous manufacturing companies. That allows me to properly care for my family. I questioned Johnson, so, can you pay it? After noticing that he was shook up. Oh my God, $100,000. But I'll lose money if I pay that much. Johnson believed that if I went back to Northside Machinery, the problem would be resolved. But he couldn't bear having to pay me more than $100,000 a month. I think he was split between receiving the punishment and going into debt to pay me. If you can't pay, then this conversation is over. Hold on. How come? Are you able to pay for it? Johnson begged. If you come back. I gave him a hard reality check, but he must have understood he had no choice but to pay. No matter how much money you offer, I'm not coming back, Samuel, I said. At what I said, Care Johnson lost all words. He must have felt completely helpless, with no way out. I was startled by a loud noise coming from the other end of the call. Then a voice out of nowhere answered. This is law enforcement. Are you Richard Johnson? Wait, I didn't do anything. I let out a cry. You might be charged with embezzlement. Kindly accompany us to the station. No, I didn't steal any property. Since I'm the president, using business funds comes naturally to me. His shouts were audible to me from the other side, but they soon stopped. He would undoubtedly now receive the just punishment. I smirked and hung up the phone as soon as I heard his voice being taken away. Following the resignation of every employee and the severing of business relations, Northside Machinery filed for bankruptcy. Johnson was accused of severe breach of trust for embezzling corporate funds while serving as president. He incited the company's bankruptcy, induced the resignation of every employee, and embezzled $300,000 in a short amount of time. As a result, he was found guilty and given a sentence that included an $80,000 fine and 7 years in prison. Moreover, because the actual damages were caused by the stoppage of transactions, several additional companies claimed a total of $100,000 in compensation. He insisted repeatedly in court that he was not at fault, Yet forcing a business into bankruptcy for personal gain is a serious offense. He'll spend time in prison for his crime of destroying the firm we loved so dearly. I didn't realize things had gotten so awful. I apologize for not noticing, I uttered. No, Christopher, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to bother you, he answered. I should be the one to apologize for allowing it to get to this point. Apologize not. I take some of the blame for not selecting a more deserving replacement. This was bound to happen. Everything has a start and a finish. In any case, it's fortunate that Johnson received the just punishment for taking advantage of our business, Christopher reminisced. I reasoned that closing the business wouldn't be a bad idea after I retired. There's no one else I trust enough to take over, and neither my son nor daughter want to run it. It's best to conclude things amicably rather than going in circles, because you also stated that you have no interest in managing. This circumstance has demonstrated that this was the best decision. That is accurate. Given the age of the business I founded, now might be the ideal time. Exactly. I don't see this as a bad thing because of this. Even now, I feel relieved. It sounds good to take it easy and spend time with my family and you. We established a company, created machines, and put in a lot of effort for 40 years. It's a little disappointing to end it here, but there are instances when it's better to draw a conclusion than to go on indefinitely. This particular example amply demonstrated that. I never had trouble making ends meet. I just loved working with machines and the company I kept. Thanks to Christopher's advice, I have enough savings to support my family comfortably and indulge in my interests. I'll thus start doing machine tinkering as a hobby and enjoy relaxing with my friends and family.